Hello, all. If you don't know who I am, my name is Robert, also known as Robbie Ector, also known as Joker Boy, sometimes known as Jirachi. I used to make Pokemon content about, I want to say, 4 or 5 years ago, and my content it wasn't at the peak of what it could have been, but people still watched it. In light of recent events, with everything going on in America, several people have reached out to me and asked me about my experience within the game. And it's caused me to have a lot of reflection upon what Pokemon, the trading card game community, is for people of color and the experiences that people of color have within the Pokemon trading card game community. So, me at the time that I was making videos, I was a big voice in Pokemon. At least I would like to think, or at least I tried to be. And so, with recent events and people reaching out to me, and me also seeing lots of things that are going on, I decided that I wanted to make another video in order to cover everything that was occurring and my personal experiences. And I also reached out to people to see their personal experiences. Those people will not be named, and those people gave me their recollection. And to be honest, I feel as though I did this because I wanted to make sure it wasn't just me. And for the most part, they didn't have too many bad things to say, although they did experience things here or there. Now, this video is going to do two things. One, I'm going to highlight the problems that people of color have when playing a game such as Pokemon. Two, I'm going to highlight how the community can better itself by as far as being an acceptive community for people of color. So number one, I started playing this game in 2004. My first pre-release was EX Deoxys, which came out early 2005. I was playing well before EX Deoxys came out. As far as the formats, I didn't quite make Fire Red Leaf Green, but I started right afterwards. At that time, I was born in 90. So in 2004, I was 14 years old when I started playing this game and when EX Deoxys came out. So I started off in the what is now called the seniors division. Back then it was 11 through 14. So I had been playing and ingrained in this game in a very long time. In addition to that, I'm from Florida, Orlando, Florida. And if you don't know, Florida Pokemon players, they have always been very competitive. We've always had a history of being very good. If you ask anybody from Florida who's been ingrained in this culture, in this game for a very long time, they absolutely know who I am. So I was playing back in that time. And going off of that I'm just establishing that to let you know how long that I had been playing this game. And I played from that point, 2005, and I think that I stopped around, I want to say 2016, 2017, somewhere around, I want to say it was 2017 when I actually fully stopped. So there you have about 12 years of me competitively playing the trading card game. And in addition to that, when I was a child, just like every other Pokemon player, when I was a child in the 90s, 98, 99, I also collected the cards. I didn't play competitively, but I collected them. I did collect the cards. Now, so going from that, I'm just establishing how ingrained. I'm going to explain to you my experience as a player of color when I was younger. So we're going to start with this. Players of color, they come from a community that does not accept trading card games, anything that is outside of athletics, as far as in hobby. Our parents, they don't accept it. So when I started playing Pokemon, yes, and I want to clarify this, I didn't want for anything. So when systems came out, like I had Xbox, I had the PlayStation, I had the GameCube, I had everything back in the day that I could ever want as far as a child. However, when it comes to playing a game such as Pokemon, a trading card game, and trying to invest in that, Black parents don't understand. They understand like kids are into video games. They understand the kids are into sports. But when it comes to trading card games, they don't understand that in particular. So already across all trading card games, black people are already at a disadvantage because for the most part, and I'm not going to say this is all black parents, but for the most part, they do not put value into a hobby such as Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, those type of things. And so at the time when I first started, I remember I used to have, just your run-of-the-mill budget decks that I was playing. And back then, Rare Candy, it was in Sandstorm, and it had only been printed in Sandstorm. And it's so crazy to me that Rare Candy is a laughable card today because of power creep. But back then, Rare Candy, it was probably like a $10 to $15 card. And I didn't have a Rare Candy. And me starting off at the shop I used to go to, I frequented the shop. I started to really get into Pokemon. And a person traded me a Rare Candy because in retrospect, it was because they understood the type of background I had. They understood the community that I came from, and they did it out of the kindness of their heart because the trade, or I think they sold it to me, and you weren't even supposed to sell in the shop. They sold it to me for like $7. Rare Candy was worth way more than that, but he did it in retrospect because he understood that I was a player who was a bit disadvantaged, who wasn't of the same privilege, and he did that for me. So and that meant so much to me. So for number one, I want to say this: when you are thinking about players of color in your trading card game community, you need to take those kind of things into account. That these players that you're playing with, they might not have all the same access that you necessarily have. So that's number one. So I'm getting more into the game. I have a group of friends who are still my friends to this day. I met them when I was in the 90s, and I still talk to them every week. I go to their house every single week. So there was one friend in particular, his name was Christian, and his brother, who is my best friend still to this day, I got them back into playing the Pokemon trading card game. And so when we say, as players of color, that our parents don't understand this, let me explain a lot of things to you guys. When we used to play test cards, we had to play test cards decks that were probably upwards 50 to 75% proxy because we just did not have the cards to play those decks. If we did have the cards to play those decks, the older brother that I just mentioned, he never went to a tournament. Never played in a tournament. It was all kitchen table for him. But he was kind of like the top dog of our friends group. So we had to do things to appease him. So whenever we went out to trade, he would say, "Oh, I want this Dark Slowking deck." Or, "Oh, I want this Tyranitar deck." So we would have to go and we would say, "Dang, if I don't come back with this deck, I don't want to displease him." So we would go out and trade cards that we knew we needed just to appease him for decks that he wanted. These were not decks that were top tier. These were decks just that he wanted. So we would go out just to appease him and trade for these cards, for these subpar decks, and we would come back and he would be pleased. But let me tell you something else. Even if he was pleased with these decks, I remember Wishing Star Jirachi from Deoxys, the first set. Wishing Star Jirachi. And y'all are playing with Wishing Star now, baby. I played with the original Wishing Star. Wishing Star Jirachi. This card was worth a good amount of money for a rare back then, just as it is now. I don't know if it's been reprinted now. I don't keep up with all of that. But it was worth a good amount of money. We were playing him with our Wishing Star decks and our Swoop Teleporters. He literally took our one Wishing Star Jirachi, crumbled it up in his hand, threw it down because he was mad he lost. This is somebody who did not play in tournaments. So now this is our only Wishing Star Jirachi. We have to take this card to tournaments. And we're running the risk of people saying it's marked, people saying we're cheating because of us not having the resources to compete. Point blank, period. And I will say this. although me and Christian, we really didn't have the resources, I will say one person who helped us in Florida, and she's very well known, is Heidi Craig. I understand that me and Heidi might not agree politically on a lot of things, but Heidi Craig, she helped us. She helped me from the time that I was 14 all the way up into the time that I was well past 21, and what she did for me and helping me and so many other people in the community, and she raised her kids right. And I'll get into that later. So regardless of her political views, I'm going to say that about Heidi Craig. And to this day, I love Heidi Craig to the death of me. But we used to have to make sure we couldn't get to tournaments 30 minutes before or an hour before because we didn't have the cards. We used to have to make sure we got to tournaments 2 hours ahead of time. And when we went to tournaments, like I said, our parents did not understand what this game meant to us. They didn't understand the value in it. So I used to literally I used to get on MapQuest, write down the directions for tournaments, write them down, give them to my brother. He would take us to the tournament. And at that point, we were on hope, like that somebody was going to remember to even come and pick us up. Our parents were never there. And you have these non-people of color kids who we grew up with, kids who are still playing to this day, kids who, if there was a Hall of Fame, these kids would be in the Hall of Fame. I knew these kids when they were under 10 years old. They are crying because they're losing matches. Crying. And I understand you're under 10 years old, you're crying, whatever the case may be. But when what you have to understand is these events in Orlando, for people of color, kids that look like me, these were the only tournaments we had every year. Our parents were not flying us cross country. They weren't driving us anywhere. So anything that happened in the Orlando metropolitan area, that was it for us. So we used to look at them and drive back home and think to ourselves, these kids have parents who play the game. They know how the game is played. That's one. That's a big step. They play the game. They know how the game is played. That's one. And then on top of that, they provide them with the cards needed to play the game. And then they go the step further and they actually drive these kids cross country, fly these kids cross country for their hobbies. Do you think we had that privilege? No, we didn't. And it's the same thing for so many other people of color. And these are the same kids who get so ingrained. These are kids who their parents are paying money for them to get coached and for them to get trained from the top players. Do you think our parents are going to put money into that? But they're going to put money into the other kids who are athletic in our families. They're going to put money, they're going to show up to every football game. They're going to show up to every dance recital because they put value in that. I remember when Christian was a phenomenal player. Christian won, I want to say, 2 regionals and 1 state, or it was either 2 states and 1 regionals, 2 regionals and 1 state. He used to tap their behinds consistently. And I remember I didn't know how we were going to get home one time. And I had to call Christian's mom and say, he's in the finals. Like, he's doing well. I think he's going to win. Come and watch your son play this game. And she came and she watched him play that game. And that was our ride home. And it's so crazy to me that these same kids who have their parents show up with them, have their parents play with them, have their parents play for them to get better, we're at these tournaments and they're crying because they lost in the finals. When this was one of only a couple of finals that we had available to us. And another thing, we play tested with each other. We didn't have X, Y, and Z to play test with. We didn't have that. Excuse me. We had to play test amongst each other. We were play testing. We barely had sleeves to put our cards in when we play tested. We were outside in the hot sun because our black parents don't always allow you to come into their kids' house. We were outside in the hot sun. We were in a garage. We were on the concrete. We were damaging our cards just so we can get better. And we didn't do anything but play. We didn't have the means, but baby, we proxied those decks all the way out, and Heidi was there every single time to provide us with those cards. So, and again, that's why I'm going to repeat Heidi's praises over and over again, because she was there for us. And that's something that you have to understand as a non-person of color. So, going from that and getting into when we got older, I remember the first worlds I went to, it was in Orlando. They had worlds in Orlando. I want to say it was 2005. Oh, was it 8? I want to say it was 2008 when I got older, because at that point I had won a tournament. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But 2008, first worlds that we ever get to attend, because our parents aren't taking us to worlds. Qualified or not qualified, they're not taking us to worlds. So me and Christian, we drive to the worlds tournament. Christian grinds in perfectly fine, because honestly, Christian was always a better player than me. Christian was a phenomenal player. But again, black people, a lot of times in these games, we don't have the resources available to us because, again, our parents don't take this hobby seriously. Christian grinded in fine. I went X1 in the grinder. And in the final round, and again, I'm not giving any names in this video. In the final round, I'm going up against a person who is X and O. So if he beats me, he's in. If he loses to me, he's in, because he has not lost a single game. And that grinder, I think only like the top 4 or 5. It was like very, very, it was a hard grinder. And I'm X and 1. And when we sit down to the table, I don't know what the rules are about this or anything like that, but I already had spoke to his friends. I was kind of like, I've never played in Worlds at this point, and I was like, I'm so close. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at the standings, I'm just like, if I get paired against the person who's X and O, maybe they'll show some kind of mercy on me, maybe they'll be nice today or anything like that. So I tell him when we sit down, I say, well, he's like, good luck. And he was like, oh, they paired me down. And I said, yeah. And I said, well, that means that if you beat me or if you lose to me, you're still going to make it in regardless. And he tells me, yeah, I know, but I want to go for the X and O because, I just want that. Again, this tournament, you're not going to win any extra prizes. And I am not faulting him for that. I can't fault him for that. But I always, not always now, because since then I've been able to play in Worlds. We'll talk about my career later at another point. But I always thought to myself, from that time until the time I picked it back up in college, I was like, if he knew me, or if I was a well-known player, or, you think, y'all say so many times it has nothing to do with your skin color. But America, the country, you see what's going on in the country today. The country that we live in, you have this anxiety built up about yourself that makes you second guess everything that happens to you. And again, I'm not blaming him for that. I didn't coerce him or anything like that. We played, and I was so nervous. My deck was actually designed to beat him. It was the same deck that I won states with. He was playing Gardy Galate. I was playing a Bennett variation. And I choked. I was so nervous because I'm thinking to myself, I've never even gotten to visit a Worlds. This is the first time I've ever even seen what Worlds looks like in person. And on top of that, I'm this close to grinding in. I was never a bad player by far, and so many people of color aren't. It's just we don't have the resources. And I'm not just talking about black and brown people. Look at even the Hispanic population. They have to, we are sleeping on. Let me continue. So my states win. I go to states, and this is the time after, I don't know if it was, I think it's Great Encounters or Secret Warriors, one or the other. It was when Guardy Galay was undeniably the best deck. You couldn't be playing Guardy Galay. That was it. I play a Bennett. I'm playing a Bennett's deck. And Bennett, this deck was specifically to counter Guardy Galay. That's what this deck was for. And a few of my friends of color, Justin Sanchez, I'll name people that I personally know, Justin Sanchez and Greg Christian, they're like, make these changes, make this and make that. So I got help on my deck from my friends. Like we were all in the same situation. We're all in the same camp. I got help from them, and they tell me, make this change, make that change. Perfect, fine, no problem. I proceed to XO the entire tournament. I didn't lose a single game that day. And the most popular team in Florida at the time, a team that I'm still involved with, a team that I love to death to this day, a team that I just genuinely love, and people who know me will know what this team is. I whooped their ass all up and through there. I'm just going to be honest. I beat them down. And it meant so much to me to win this tournament because, like I said, me at that time, the only tournaments that I could play in were the ones that were happening in the Orlando metropolitan area because I didn't have the means or the support to travel outside of that. And that's something that you have to take into consideration about people of color playing this game. And let me go into detail about this tournament. So I remember I had one top 8, and I was in the top 4. And my mom came to pick me up. So I go outside. I'll never forget this. I go outside. My mom, my family members, they're all in the car. I go outside. My mom tells me, my nickname is Booby. She's like, Booby, we gotta go. I don't know it's time to go. You told me to come at this time. And I'm telling my parents to come at a specific time because as a player, I didn't think I was going to make it that far. So she's like, it's time for us to go. And I tell my mom, I'm not leaving. I don't know what you want me to do, but this is the furthest I've ever made it in one of these. And I'm going to stay because I feel like I can win. Do you know what my mom did? She drove off and left me. She drove off and she left me. And I won that tournament. And it means so much to me. And even afterwards, people were still discrediting me. The team that I'm a part of now, I've heard that on the way home, they were the saltiest. The saltiest. And even when I was younger, I always wanted people to look to, people to embrace me, people to say, oh, he's Hector, he's not that bad. I always looked for that, and I never got it. And so I learned years later that they were salty that I beat them. And that's understandable. But my dad was the one who came and picked me up from that tournament that night. And I had my trophy, and I'm so proud of it. I could keep it in my classroom. Because for you guys, you have these kids who've been playing since they were like juniors and seniors. And they have all these plaques. They have all these trophies. And for them, it's just another one. But for us, we only had 3 or 4 events every year. So if I won one of those 3 or 4 events, you're going to every city. You're going to every city. You're going to every regional. Good for you. Good for you that you don't value the wins that you got. Good for you that you said, oh, look, I'm using my plaques as coasters. Like I've seen players say that. So good for you. But that meant so much to me. And my dad, and I say black parents don't support the hobby. My dad, when I was younger, because I switched from Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was in middle school, he used to buy me packs. My dad loved that I was intelligent. He loved that I was into something. But once you get to a certain age, I won states when I was 17 years old. So once you get to a certain age, your parents are going to continue to put that in for you, especially black parents. So it felt so good to me because I knew my dad was proud. I knew he thought of himself, all these packs that I got him, all this money that I've spent on these card games, he has something to show for it. And that meant so much to me. And it's one of my greatest memories with my father. And I won that states. And when you won states back then, they don't have states anymore. But when you won states back then, you had a stipend that they would give you $300, a $300 stipend. So it was up to you to use that stipend in order to go to nationals. And I won the stipend. And Christian already went to nationals. And I'm about to get into that in a minute. Because Christian Art was winning when we were younger. Christian was tearing it up. They knew if they saw Christian, they were just like, some of the seniors, even to this day, they're like, oh, I just can't. They would tell you, I just can't beat him. And think about it. We were just playing each other. We practiced against each other. Christian didn't practice against anybody else. So if you think about us, if we had the privileges that other players have, how far we would have made it. Okay, so getting into me going to nationals. I worked at Greyhound at the time. I'm telling my parents, I won this $300 stipend. Nationals is over the summer. Can you guys take some time off so I can go to nationals and come with me and everything like that? Do you know I ended up having to sneak on the Greyhound I rode the Greyhound for an entire day, 24 hours. I left 6 a.m. from Orlando, got to Columbus, Ohio, 6 a.m. the next day. I took a 24-hour trip, and my parents didn't know until I was in Atlanta that I was on the Greyhound. I had to lie to them just so I can go and get their $300 stipend because they are not pausing whatever they're doing for some Pokemon. That is what I'm trying to explain to you, is the difference that players of color experiences versus those who are not. Okay? These are the type of things. I get to nationals. I'm supposed to be staying with, he was a Poke dad at the time. His son still plays. I'm supposed to be staying with this person. Again, not dropping any names. Those who know, you'll know. Not dropping any names. Me and Greg, the night, I think it was the first night in the convention center, we end up staying too long. We both have cell phones at the time. We end up staying too long, and we end up, and the Poke dad ends up leaving us, 2 black kids under the age of 18. The Poke dad tells us that they're not coming back. We end up sleeping in the convention center. Us. Yes. I brushed my teeth and washed off in the convention center the next day when nationals was the next day. We slept in the convention center because he didn't want to come back and pick us up. So when I tell you the things that we have to go through, my parents were not there. I was not even sleeping on this, I didn't even have a bed. I'm sleeping on this guy's floor at this convention center. And I get my $300 stipend. I don't do too well at that nationals, but this is the first time I've gone, and I have to book my own flight. My flight back was $240. So basically, I didn't gain any money because my parents weren't putting anything into it. So I didn't gain any money. Nothing was put aside. Nothing of the sort. Nothing was put aside. So there was nothing there. You know, at the end of the day, I didn't gain anything, but it was my nationals experience. And you think of so many other people's national experience, and it's much different. They go to several nationals. Christian went to one. And I'm going to talk about Christian right now. The one nationals Christian went to, his mom actually took him because Christian's mom was a bit more accepting. She was a bit more understanding. They went to this nationals. Again, us as colors of player. And Christian top 16 that nationals and lost on a misplay. I believe it was top 16. Christian was good. Christian top 16 at national, but he didn't have the cards to play his deck. And when he got up there, he had to ask a senior from Florida, a person that you guys would put in, if we could put players in the Hall of Fame, y'all would put this boy in the Hall of Fame. And this boy, I remember the first tournament me and Christian went to together. I think it was both of our first tournaments. This boy cheated against him. And Christian has always been shy and he's always been coy. But that's another thing that players of color experiences. And I'm going to get into elitism in the Pokemon community in a minute. This boy cheated against Christian. I'm not, like I said, I know how the Pokemon community is, so I'm gonna mention that. That's why I'm not mentioning names, because I could say 1,000 names. Y'all are gonna run to defend them. This boy, because Christian had no reason to lie when we were 10, and there have been things that has come up against this person after the fact. This Christian had to ask this boy for cards for his deck because this is the only person he knew, and this is a rival. Like, we didn't have the means necessary. You're not gonna ask it, and you get what I'm saying. Like, and then when black parents look at you, if you as a black child, you say, "Oh, well, this boy cheat. I don't wanna." They're gonna look at you like, "What?" Like, boy, if you don't go ask that boy for some cards, I'm not spending money on these Pokemon. That is the reaction of black parents, and it's so crazy to me because that's what we experience in this community. And so, what I'm trying to tell you guys is, be people who embrace and who understand what people of color have to go through when they are chasing dreams such as these. Okay? Not every person of color is going to be a prodigy. And when you're a prodigy, it's easy for your parents to accept it. But sometimes you need that practice. You need that help. And when you're playing against people or anything like that, like, you know, again, I'm not saying that this person who played against me in that grinder had to do what he had to concede to me. I don't care. Like I said, I've been able to achieve that goal of playing in Worlds much later. But when you're in those situations, think to yourself, what could I do for this person that isn't going to cost me anything? Like Heidi used to do so many times. And even into my adulthood, Heidi was still there for me. So, that's that. Now, I'm going to get into the issues as I got older with the Pokemon community. So, as I get older in the Pokemon community, I am in college. I'm going to Florida State University here in Tallahassee. I am, again, reached out to by Omar, and I love Omar to this day, love him to death. And this is somebody who I knew since I was a senior, and he was a part of this particular team. You guys know what the team is. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm invigorated. I want to play again. I want to do what I'm gonna do. So I accept him and his team, and we all start to play together because at that point in my life, I'm grown. You know, at this point, I'm kind of like, my parents can't hold me back. I can do what I want to do and everything like that. So at this point, I'm going to get into what the community, especially this community, had harbored these thoughts and these ideas and these themes when I was older. So, 1, elitism. 2, not holding players accountable. Those are the 2 biggest things that happen within the Pokemon community. And in doing research for this video, I've spoken to several people who are of color, people who weren't of color. And elitism is a thing that is a constant theme throughout. That because a player is at a certain place, we can't speak on these players because they've won X, Y, and Z. They've apologized. They've proven themselves. I want to call a spade a spade. A spade is always going to be a spade. And, oh, I'm not going to say that. But a spade is a spade. So, getting into that. So, I started to do tournaments. I started to play. And that season, I had started to tear it up. Like, I'm not even going to lie. Like, I had the means to travel with these people. These same people who were traveling when I was a teenager, but they were not embracing me. So they were going here, there, and which everywhere when I was a teenager. But now that I'm older, these people are now embracing me. So now I'm going to X, Y, and Z tournament. So I remember, I want to say I placed top 4 at Alabama State when I was in regionals. With Lilligan, I placed top 4 with that deck. When I won 2 cities that season, like I was blowing it up. And I was doing very well. So I started to make video content at that time. And that's kind of where, if you are a subscriber to me now, that's where you're going to know me from, is me making video content at that time. So I began to make video content at that time. And I understand that my video content was not what you would expect a typical Pokemon player or a Pokemon listener or a small child to listen to. I understand that. But I was real. Like, I was honest. I was straight up with people and I said what was on my mind. And that did rub a lot of people the wrong way, but at the same time, you know, who am I to sugarcoat these things? But what I will say is that certain people backed me. My videos were enjoyable. I let my personality shine through. I didn't put up a front. I will also say that at the time, the Top Cut and Puka was, he shouted me out. He warned people. He said, you know, this I'm just gonna let you guys know this Robbie Actor, or I don't even remember what my name was called at the time, but I'm just gonna let you know that they're gonna say what they want to say. But I appreciate him for that. Like, anytime I saw Puka as a fellow content creator, that was somebody I looked up to. As a great player, that was somebody I looked up to, and he always acknowledged me. And so these are the type of things that you need to do for people who are of color. Like, these are the type of things that you need to be aware of and you need to acknowledge. And he was always consistently and there for me. And I appreciated that so much. And so at that time, I was even doing commentary. I remember I was commentating a Florida regional, and the chat loved me. They were eating me up. But being a black person, here we go. They're calling me Chris Rock. Like, they were just referring to me as Chris Rock. I'm telling them my name time and time again. I'm Chris Rock. And I'm saying what I want to say. And they're saying it's entertaining. They're laughing. These same people who had me on commentary this day, the next day, top players lose the tournament. I go back thinking I'm going to do commentary. Guess what? I'm not doing commentary. And guess what the people in the chat are saying? And again, this is still problematic, but they're saying, where's the black guy? Where's Chris Rock? Because my commentary was entertaining, but I'm being replaced. And again, this is going back to elitism. I'm being replaced by these people who y'all feel as though are the beacons or the voices for the community. These same people who have been problematic time and time again. And I understand the first day, I believe it was Aaron, and I'm gonna say this person's name because I don't care about sugarcoating anything about this. It was Aaron Tarbell. He was playing, and if you follow the game, you know Aaron Tarbell. He had a bad attitude. He worked on it. He improved. I will say that, but he had a bad attitude at the time. He's playing some Trevenant deck, and he made some kind of judge ruling. I don't remember what it was, but I called him out on it. I wasn't at the point where I could be I was transparent, but I wasn't at the point where I could hold back. And now you get into these situations where and what caused me to call out everything that was going on right now is that there was a post that was talking about some type of community cup, or they were inviting players, and I'm looking at the list of players and I'm like, where are the black people? Where are the LGBT? Like, you guys have people of color. 2 of the players have me blocked that were on the list. And somebody called out them for being cheaters. And then another person in the comment was like, well, this person has apologized for cheating. People that I know. And I'm kind of like, y'all can't continue, because they've done problematic things. I'm going to get into that in a minute. They've done problematic things, and you can't continue to excuse them, right? Oh, they're not a cheater anymore. But when you're complicit and people being nasty and racist and all that other kind of stuff, where am I supposed to stand? Like, where am I supposed to have an understanding about that? So, moving forward from there. So I'm doing commentary and I'm trying to get my voice out there. I'm making videos. I'm putting in time. I'm editing. And these videos are not getting the support that they deserve. And I'll never forget, this is the last video that I made. The last video that I made was a video asking the question, should Puzzle of Time be banned? I asked this question. Should puzzle be banned and expanded? So ahead of time, I'm just gonna ask y'all: is puzzle legal and expanded right now? Oh, okay. So I posted a video saying should puzzle time be banned and expanded, and it was so funny because I spent time researching. I put all the stats out. I said what it was, and even at the end of the video, I said it's still too early to call. I said this at the end of the video. I said, at the end of the day, I feel like Puzzle of Time being banned and historic, we can't call it just now. It's still too early to call. Do you know people laughed at me? They laughed at my video on the comments, and you can still see this on my page because I'm on the same page. They laughed at the video in the comments. They disliked the video. And when I posted it to Hey Fonte or Verbeek or whatever it was at the time, people laughed at me there as well. And guess what ended up happening? Puzzle of Time was banned. So that was the last video. That was the last straw for me. At that point, I'm saying to myself, I can't continue. Because no matter what I put, no matter what I post, because who I am, they're not going to enjoy it. And it bothers you because people can say it's nothing to do with race. People can say that 10 times over. But when you are a black person in America, when you understand what you've had to go through to get where you're at in terms of a trading card game, you start to think to yourself, it does. It has to. It's not just me. It can't be just me. And that's what you think about. And that's what the conversation is about all over the world right now, is that you need to hold yourself accountable. People who think they're allies aren't really allies. And it boiled my blood. And this is why I wanted to make a video about this. When I saw that they had this invitational and I'm looking at the list and there are no black people. We're commentators in Pokemon. When they started to get big, where are the black commentators? Where are they? They had some guy who was like on interviews, but there are black people who play this game. There are black people who've done very well at this game. John Roberts, let me curtail into that. John Roberts. He was the first black person to win nationals. And it was at a time where I was very ingrained in the community. I was making videos and stuff. And do you know the stuff they said about John Roberts? Do you know how disrespectful they were to John Roberts? Do you know that they were saying his win was a fluke, his deck was terrible? Do you know that they also said that his faith in God, because he cited his faith in God as a part of why he won, which is sensible. I mean, that is, if you have a strong faith in God like me and John Roberts do, that's something that you should be able to cite. And do you know people were running around saying, like, he cites God for his win, but it was luck. Like, people were saying that, and I'm having to defend this. People who I feel like are my friends, and I'm having to defend this. And it might be paranoia, but you can't help to ask yourself, why is this person being discredited? This is the first, like I used to say that about myself all the time. I was the first person to have ever won, black person, to have ever won a Florida State championship. And I think, states are over. So I got that title to my name. I'm the only black person to have won a Florida State championship. Why can't I be proud of that? Do you know how much inspirational that was to say a black man won and I'm rooting for him just because he's black and these people are tearing him down? And that's where I say the elitism comes in. And as I was making my videos on my channel and being in Burbank, Hey Fonte, whatever it was, I was calling people out left and right. I don't care that we grew up together. I honestly don't. I didn't. And I still don't. I'm going to call you out when I feel that there's a need to call you out. And I called out who I wanted to. But because of this culture of elitism and feeling as though, oh, well, he's won so many tournaments, there's no way he could cheat. He's won so many tournaments, I'm not going to listen to what you say. That needs to end. That needs to come to an end in the Pokemon community because it is exhausting and it is unfair to people who actually have valid claims. These valid claims are consistently ignored those need to come to an absolute end. And it, like I said previously, it's simply exhausting. These are reasons why I ended up leaving the community, because I felt as though if you are not going to even listen and support me when I care so much about this game. I grew up on Pokemon. I wrote an essay in college on my nonfiction class. My degree is in creative writing. I wrote a nonfiction essay on Pokemon and what it meant to me. The essay was so good that my college professor started playing the trading card game. That's how good the essay was. So you don't have the room to tell me that Pokemon means nothing to me, but it's so hurtful when this game that means so much to you is exploited and taken for granted by so many people due to privilege. It is upsetting. It is exhausting. It broke me so bad when I had to ultimately decide that I was leaving the Pokemon community. It broke me so bad. And here we are now. And the reason I spoke out on this issue is because people have been coming to me. People have been asking me about my experiences. People have finally been acknowledging the idea or the fact that people of color are not treated fairly in this game. And I had to say to myself, okay, well, I want to share what I went through. It might not be the same for everybody else, but like I told you, I have been playing since 2005. I stopped playing around 2017. So my experience versus other people's experiences is going to be different. Plus, I was a content creator. Plus, I knew people in the community. But I was not an unpopular player. People knew who I was. So, when I reach out to certain people of color, they're kind of like, no. But me knowing people coming back and bringing things to me being behind the scenes, these are certain things that are going to let me know this. So when I saw a VGC player that I love, I absolutely love this VGC player. Oh my God, I love him so much. But when I saw him citing somebody who was very problematic when I was playing, who is still very problematic in my eyes, when I saw him citing this person as somebody who they should look to for what's going on in America, it just disgusted me. When I saw this list of players who were invited to this invitational, that two of them had me blocked because of me saying what I had to say and me being upfront about these people, it disgusted me. And I'm going to get into this. This is the last thing I'm going to speak on. This particular player, and again, I'm not going to drop any names, but y'all know who this player is. They were ridiculed. They were dragged through the dirt. They had friends who were very popular in the community. And to this day, now they've rebranded and refurbished their image. And people who I know personally, who I've known for years, are still defending these people. And like I said, this is the problem with elitism in the Pokemon community. This particular player openly admitted to cheating, got disqualified for a tournament for cheating. And I want to say it was a Texas Regionals with this player. We drove in the same car. They explained their story to me, and I said, I understand. People make mistakes. And they attributed the fact that they cheated to them being associated with players who were of the elite, feeling as though if they did poorly, these elite players would look at them badly. These same players that I grew up playing with. So I was like, well, dang, I can't fault you for that. I understood this player's story and everything like that. But what ended up happening is as this player continued to do well, they fell back into that cycle of elitism that is associated with the Pokemon community, to the point where they felt like they were above it at this point. Like, I've won X and Y Z tournament. I've done X and Y Z well. I'm not gonna, there's nothing you can say to me. And that's kind of what turned me off from everything that had been occurring with this player. But as I was making my content on my YouTube channel, a team that this player was associated with, and this was leaked to me, yes, leaked to me that they would share my videos that I would upload to my channel. And I was wondering, this is so discouraging. Like I said, I'm a person of color. We have a paranoia because of how we're treating the society on a day-to-day basis. I would upload videos about things and immediately 5 dislikes. I would have like 0 views, 5 dislikes. And I would be like, well, how is that possible? And what was leaked to me is that this particular group from Florida, Florida players, they all would share my video into this group and tell everybody to dislike it. And when I confronted this player who explained their situation to me, who I stuck up for when people always would say bad things about them, this player denied it. They didn't own up to it. They weren't there for me. And now you want to be the spokesperson for how America should treat people of color? It doesn't work that way. That rubs me so much the wrong way. And it's just, to me, it's disgusting. This same player, the last time I played Pokemon in an actual event, this is probably the last event I played, and we played in the cities. We were in top 4, me and this player. And their deck was, I wasn't going to win the matchup. Their deck was miles ahead of my deck as far as the particular matchup. And, to the point where I was like, damn, well, did you know I was playing this deck? Because why would you even, because the deck they were playing was not that popular. But anyways, they beat me. Perfectly fine. And we had a great game in the top 4. And after that, I said, there's no reason for me to be petty with this player. I texted this person, or I unblocked them from Facebook, messaged this person and said, there's no reason for me to continue to be petty by blocking you. I see that you've grown a lot, and I hope you do well in the future. Do you know this person went right back around and blocked me in retaliation? So I can't win for losing. There is a player from Florida, who I've known since they were below 10 years old, stayed with them on several trips. They posted this. And y'all want to say that race isn't a factor? That's what y'all want to say? No, it definitely is. And when you are in the limelight, when you are speaking and when you are vocal, it becomes even more, okay, of a factor. So what I want to say ultimately is this. We need to hold Pokemon players accountable for things that they do in terms of race, in terms of gameplay, in terms of social issues, period. We need to hold Pokemon players accountable because the problem with the Pokemon community was always accountability. And I'm not going to say you as a whole, but they don't hold players accountable. And so when Pokemon makes this statement saying that we embrace all our players of color, where is the representation? Where is it that I can see myself represented? Where is it? Because when they put out the commentators, there were none that were black, right? When black people do well, y'all want to discredit us. When black people are making videos, y'all want to say that we're inappropriate. So where is the representation for us? That's my question to you guys. And that's something that you need to work on. 2, when you see players of color who are trying to break into the mainstream, who are trying to be good and great at this game, understand that you might have privilege that they don't, and accept that. There's a lot of entitlement. There's a lot of cheating that goes on just because players feel like this person shouldn't beat me. This person doesn't deserve to beat me. There are things that go on in the Pokemon community because of that. I've been firsthand witness to it, and I've seen it. I've heard it. So these are the type of things that you guys need to be mindful of. Be mindful of your entitlement. Be mindful that there are players who are not privileged as yourself. Be mindful that black voices in Pokemon deserve to be heard, not only in the TCG but also in the BGC and as a whole. I'm in this group on Facebook called Black Pokemon Trainers Rock, and they mostly play, casually the video game, but it means so much to be a part of a community like that and be with people who also share my same views. So these are the things that you need to consider. I've spoken my piece about this situation in light of recent events, and I hope that there is a change. I love Pokemon sincerely. I will drop my essay below. I will drop it and I will let you guys know. Well, excuse me, if you read it, it will let you guys know how my experience was growing up with Pokemon, even though I've kind of explained it for you now. But these are things that needed to be addressed. And I hope that someone takes this and the community ultimately grows from it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful year. Stay safe, okay? And remember that Black lives matter.